One out there in Facebook land. I'm Jill Valley, and I'm from KPAX-TV, and we're in Missoula today, and we're going to be helping you with what we like to call the Rebound Montana. It's our effort to help get you some answers to your questions as we experience this pandemic, everything from unemployment to your personal finances to ways to help your family. And today we are going to be talking about your money, what your checkbook looks like, and what you should be doing to survive this pandemic as we see our economy start to slow down. Joining me now is Tom Jacobson. He is the Executive Director of Rural Dynamics. Now, Rural Dynamics is affiliated with a company called GreenPath, and the mission is to help families and individuals achieve financial security and pursue the economic opportunities that they would like, and helps manage debt. It was actually formed in 1968 when it was called Consumer Credit Counseling, which may be a name more people are familiar with. And Tom is joining me now from Great Falls. You are a state senator. You own several businesses and rental properties in addition to running the nonprofit. So I feel you've got a pretty good snapshot of how people are feeling out there and what their personal finance concerns might be. So thanks for being with us today. I guess we're going to be talking about some money. How are you doing?
I'm good, Jill. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, we're really interested to hear what you have to say. You know, we're seeing unprecedented turmoil in the U.S. economy, job losses in Montana. Some are permanent, some are temporary. Are you having people call your office with their personal finance concerns, and what kinds of questions do they have for you these days?
Yeah, we are having several people call. There's a lot of concern, obviously, about an uncertain future. Wanting to know, those folks with credit card debt, what are some ways that they can address that? And we also have folks calling in looking for, what are other options they have for their mortgage, student loans, and basic budget help. Yeah, so we have seen a bit of an uptick since March.
People are starting to pay attention to these things, I imagine. And if you're watching right now on Facebook and you have a question for Tom, go ahead and type it in, and we'll see if he can answer it for you, because that's what we're here to help answer your questions. Now, a lot of us remember that big recession of 2008 when people were really concerned about their finances. Everybody backed off a little bit. Is that what we're going to be seeing, something similar now? I guess we don't really know what's going to happen with our economy and this pandemic, if we're going to see the emergence of the virus. So is there a difference between then and what we could be seeing now?
I think the biggest, difference had to do with the collapse of the banking and the mortgage accounts. We had so many people at the time that had, predatory loans, or they had, they had some subprime loans in their property, and they really weren't set up. There was that big push. So the big focus at that time was foreclosure prevention, loss mitigation, and not to say that we aren't addressing that now. There is definitely some concern out there about people losing their homes. But really, I think the issue we see now, especially with the unemployment and that uncertainty of cash flow. So what our folks are dealing with are just, how am I going to pay my bills? How am I going to pay my rent? As opposed to, oh my gosh, I'm going to lose my home. So there are some nuances that are slightly different this time around.
When people lose their job and they need to buy groceries, they often turn to credit cards. Is there a danger there of people relying on that too much? And as those debts start to rise, should you look at the deferred payments? Should you look for maybe a lower interest credit card, or what's the advice there?
I think that if you're concerned about, some of the basic needs, all of this is really a cash flow issue. So like right now, folks, a lot of those folks are getting that $1,200 stimulus check. So what do we do with that? And, my advice would be to hold on to that as long as you can. Use that for those basic expenses and those things that, right now we know that, there can be some rent forbearance. There can be mortgage forbearance, just calling your creditors, calling your mortgager, talking to your landlord. There's assistance through the state right now for housing assistance, for rental assistance. So there are a lot of different opportunities out there to deal with those short-term things. The one thing that that you can't get a forbearance on really are your groceries or your gas. So use those dollars very smartly. If you get that $1,200 check and you're like, geez, I really want to pay off this credit card right now. Maybe now is not the time to pay that off, and rather, hold that 1,200. And if you need to, ask for some delays on those payments, talk to your creditors, and but try to hold on to that, especially if your future is uncertain, and especially if you don't know, if you're going to have a job, or when you're going to go back to work. And 2 or 3 months and we're back to work and things are going well, then we can start addressing that. But I would hold on to some of that cash and leverage the opportunities that are out there right now before I started spending that down.
Okay. Now, we do have some state programs and federal programs that people can look to help when it comes to paying their rent or their mortgage. Are you advising your clients to look into some of those, even though for some of them it might be the first time they've ever had to ask for any kind of help, and that might be difficult to even know where to look?
And I think that's one of the things about Montanans, that we're a proud bunch. We don't want to ask for help. We don't want to ask for public assistance. Right now, if you've got problems with your mortgage, or you're paying your rent, if you can go to housing.mt.gov, there are resources there in the recent stimulus, the state stimulus package that they received, that they are using to help folks get through this time. So yeah, I guess what I would recommend is reaching out, and it's not a prideful thing. When you need the help, that's what the help is there for. And that's what we pay into for all this time, and those times when we do need to reach back, and take that back. So yeah, definitely. And our folks here at RDI, and we can definitely point you in the right direction and help you navigate those state systems as well.
If you guys are watching us on Facebook and you have a question about your personal finances, type it in and we'll ask Mr. Jacobson that. I wanted to ask you too about how Montana might be dealing with this a little bit differently. Missoula is just now opening things like hair salons and eventually gyms. Great Falls, where you are, opened up a little quicker. So are we seeing kind of a different ebb and flow of cash and money issues in the state as we start to reopen slowly?
Yeah, I think that each community is taking it differently, and I think that's a good thing. As the governor has started to unwind some of these restrictions, he's given the ability to make those decisions to local health departments and local governments as to how they want to handle that. And I think that's been a good decision, because like you said, each community is a little bit different. I know here in Great Falls, we are seeing some restaurants starting to take patrons again, with limited capacity and following the guidelines. In Great Falls, we had a tremendous amount of takeout meals and taken home meals and drinks to go and growler fill. So we saw a lot from the restaurant and the bar industry, at least that service industry. We did see quite a bit of activity during the virus, and where I know other communities may not have experienced that. So yeah, each community is a little bit different for sure.
It's kind of hard where you want to support those local businesses, yet you have to want to protect your own checkbook too. So finding that balance is something families are going to have to decide as well. Now, you also have rental properties. How are your renters doing with that at this juncture in this coronavirus pandemic?
Well, I can speak only for myself, but I can tell you that I've got 21 units, and I've had one person that was unemployed that said that they were going to be late on their rent. And I think that's very indicative of Montana and a Montana attitude that, folks, this idea that people, they're going to jump on the fact that they can't be evicted, or that people want to pay their rent. And so out of the units that I have personally, to see the fact that one person said, hey, I'm going to be late, but I'm going to make that payment, I just need a little extra time, I think speaks volumes to, hard working class Montanans.
What about as things reopen? We still don't know. There's so many uncertainties. Like, are we going to see a recession? Is the virus going to come back? Do you think things could get worse for us, economically speaking, even personally, economically speaking, more job losses? Or use your crystal ball and tell me what could happen here.
Of course, things could get worse. and things could get better. It's so different. It's so difficult to really pinpoint this. I think the state, as we start to open up, as we, start, because we don't have a vaccine, we don't have maybe the immunity that we need. We're going. I think it can only be unexpected that we're going to see, some uptick. And what that uptick is we're not going to know. Is this are people come to our state and they want to stay at our national parks? They want to experience Montana. They're not flying overseas, or they're staying closer to home. We really have some concerns about how is it we're going to be able to address those issues, or how are we going to monitor that? And honestly, somebody driving in from Washington to go to Glacier National Park, I don't know how we're going to address that, and what are the ramifications going to be for our gateway communities. So I think that the best an ounce of prevention is worth a pound of cure. So from a personal financial aspect, I think we need to be preparing for that. I think we need to be trying to save as much money as we can, and writing this out through the course of the next 9, 12, 18 months.
So we got a question from a Melissa, who was wondering if you could give some quick budget tips for those who have to sit down and write out how things are going to go. What advice would you give somebody who would call your office?
Well, from some budgeting tips, what I would say is really take a comprehensive look at what your expenditures are. And look at everything, that is, like a hard cost, whether it's your housing, your food costs, your pet cost, your automobile loan, all of those things, you need to write down and understand, and then look at what your overall revenue sources are, and figure out what you have left over at the end of the month. I mean, that's where you start. And then understand, is there, do I have enough at the end of the month for those variable expenses? If I don't, where are places that I can cut back? And, we have to count those things, and maybe we don't, that $4 cup of coffee, or that growler of beer, or the trips to the store, we can look at where areas that we can cut back. And then, if there are shortfalls, then we have to look at, do I need to tap into housing assistance? Do I need to tap into other public benefits? Do I need, right now it's kind of difficult with the unemployment rate to find additional work. So, how do I, look at all of those avenues that you have to bring that budget back to a neutral, or above the break even. And then, and if you have any additional questions, you can always call us at RDI. And there's the number on the screen, 454-5709, and we're here to help.
What kinds of things do you ask, or do you talk to people about when they make that first phone call to your office? What sort of information do they need to have prepared to talk to your folks about when they call?
Well, I think again, is just having a pretty comprehensive understanding of what your income is and what your expenses are. If you're behind on your credit card debt, make sure that you have, if you call us or you come in, that you have copies of those credit card statements. If you're in arrears on your credit card statements, then we can definitely help you either on your own, make those calls to your creditors, or we can call on your behalf. We do have the ability to help with what we call a debt management plan for folks that have credit card debt that is beyond their ability to pay, and so that we can negotiate. That's a whole other program that we've been doing for a very long time, where we negotiate with your creditors on past due payments. We can bring down your interest rates to a doable amount. We can re-age your account so you're not late, and then we can help you manage that debt and get things paid off in a relatively short period of time. Our average client comes to us with over $20,000 in debt and looking at probably 28 years to pay it off at the minimum payments, and we can help them get down to like 3.5 years of payments without really increasing their overall out-of-pocket expenditures, and build that into a comprehensive budget. So yeah, bring all your tools, bring all your questions, bring all of your your utilities and everything else, and we help you sort through it one page at a time.
Tom, thank you so much. We're about to wrap it up here, but I'm hearing that save your stimulus check. Make sure you have a budget. Be in contact with your credit card companies and your landlords or your mortgage company if you're having trouble paying. Maybe buckle down a little bit because we don't know how this is going to end. Anything else to add to give somebody some advice on how to manage this rebound through the coronavirus pandemic?
And don't be afraid to reach out. I mean, it's a very uncertain time. We've got great resources at the state. We've got great resources here at RDI. So if you've got questions or you've got concerns, don't keep that inside. Go ahead and ask for a hand. And there are plenty of resources and people that are eager and ready to help.
All right. Tom, thank you so much for joining us on this segment of the Rebound Montana as we try to find answers to people and their questions as we deal with this pandemic. Joining us from Great Falls, from Rural Dynamics. Thank you so much. Thank you on Facebook for watching, and we'll see you back here a little bit later.
Thank you.